Intentionally ruining your own life without realizing it. This is a problem that actually showed up in my life not too long ago. And basically, what happens is if you're from a very dysfunctional household early in life, very dysfunctional life, people are often mean to you, especially people in caretaker roles, and unfortunately, siblings as well. What will happen, and you often see this with the youngest or the younger um, of large families, that in many cases, like the youngest is spoiled. In cases of dysfunction, its shit rolls downhill. So you do not possess any ability to defend yourself. So everyone can victimize you. And what ends up happening to some people, depending on the circumstances, if it is drilled into your head that you have stuff wrong with you, you will believe what people tell you. In fact, and I was stunned to realize this, in a situation like that, it is safer for the child to take on hatred of their own self, to identify with the caretakers more. Now, the danger here is that these things happen very, very young. In many cases, it's almost before people have memory. But you often remember what home life was like. So, you know, it's just people don't take into account why they behave the way they do. And its bigger picture often remains unseen because there are many things in my life where I just gave up on trying in general. In fact, it was a line from The Simpsons: trying is the first step towards failure. This is something that I adopted in life as policy because what I had learned was anytime I try to do anything, it doesn't matter if it's doing puzzles, building a model airplane, it doesn't matter. I am going to be attacked, humiliated, and have whatever I'm working on destroyed. And like this is a consistent pattern throughout life. So if every time you try to do something, it is a source of tremendous pain, you just stop doing things. But this continues in later life, especially if it's never addressed. If, like, in an ideal world, you would have people that, find kids like this and care about them in some way. But most of the time, they're just going to go through life without ever being noticed. Because when you're from situations like that, you don't make noise. You don't cause trouble unless, I you could arguably say I caused trouble with the law, but that once again was more something in my understanding of things, I was forced to do. I didn't have a choice. But, you know, it wasn't, the police were not a beneficial factor. The juvenile justice system is something I harbor an intense hatred for. And it's something I prefer not to think about because if I start thinking about it, I'll start thinking about the guards that were there and that I could find these people. And then I start thinking ugly things like, what if they're dead? Well, their kids will be alive. And it's like, ooh, but that's how angry I am with it. Like, that's how much venom I harbor in my heart for, like, the juvenile justice system. Um, it's intense, irrelevant. Interestingly, like it is often pointed out to me, like you'll harbor this kind of hatred for like school and the justice system, but the people that hurt you the most, you show them the most forgiveness. In fact, things you would unquestionably knock someone unconscious for in the street or throw your life away on, in the situation of family, you don't even do anything about it. It's like that's that's one of those juvenile things, you know? It's strange how when stuff gets drilled into your brain so young, it's just the way life is and you never question it. And as I was getting to, I by the time I was like 13, I mean, I was drinking every single day, taking pills, doing coke. And most of that in my eyes was try to escape. But what it did also do is further contribute to this idea that trying is the first step towards failure. I would do nothing. Petty crime and robbing to support alcohol and drugs and stuff like that, but nothing beyond that. Like, I would never put effort towards something. In fact, like around 16, 17, I started writing in notebooks, and these were things that had to be hidden at great cost. Often, when I was younger, I would just destroy them after I was done because I knew the consequences of someone finding it. And I mean, most of it was relatively benign, but that doesn't matter. Like, anything is going to be a source of attack. And in ways, it's still something that I see people try and enforce on me, and I am more adept at handling it now. You have to be calm. You can't overreact to things. Overreacting is always the goal. But um, anyway, I had stopped trying to do anything because I knew it would cause me tremendous pain. But the problem is, like, my life becomes pointless and I don't do anything. And there's no skills, there's no development of anything. And obviously, I had potential as a kid. There was a lot that could have been done with me. I'm very bright, athletic, capable, but these were all things that made me a danger to other members of my family. They were things that had to be destroyed in me to make sure I wasn't a threat to any of my brothers. And they're all older, so it was very easy to do that to my mind. Now, everyone has problems. I don't like attributing evil to people or like running people down about stuff. This is stuff that happened 30 or 40 years ago or something like that. Yeah, not 40, but um, I don't like running people down about stuff. That's not the point of why I'm talking about these things. The point of talking about it is because other people go through similar things and they never have the realization that, oh no, I'm doing this to myself. And if they do, it's in such a way where it's so quick and they'll run away from it. Uh, like, people have done, in my own case, people have done so much wrong to me. I don't want to see myself as the source of like what's going wrong in my life. But ultimately that was what's happening, is like I am letting all these people that did very negative stuff to me have control of my head and not look out for my own best interest. I did not serve myself. My thoughts did not serve me. They actually worked against me, and that's just the way it was. It didn't have to be, but I didn't know any other way. No one had ever shown me anything else. And unfortunately, in many ways, like, unless you are introduced to an idea, unless someone gives you the tools to understand something, it's just empty space. You won't understand it. You can even look at it and see it, but you won't make the connections if the base isn't there to understand what's happening. And this is what happened with me in many cases where I just never tried anything. I wouldn't do anything because at one point it would have been a vector of attack. And like I said, in ways it still is. People try to do it, but you know, it's more difficult. Um, and it often comes at a cost, an emotional cost. I make people aware of what they do. If someone is trying to do something hurtful to me, and they're not an outsider, I will make them aware of what they're doing, and usually that's pretty effective at making someone like see how they are doing something to hurt someone intentionally. That's enough to make them go, oh no, I'm the bad guy here. And once you do that, like usually it's enough. But in 20 years ago, like that's not something I was capable of doing. I wasn't calm enough, and I was so agitated and upset, and like anything would be enough to freak me out. And I see that happen with kids today and younger people where it's like they're so high strung that things they should be able to control they can't, and it makes them look insane. And I remember what that's like. It like people see me now and think I'm like well put together and I can convey myself well, but 20 years ago it wasn't like that. And people have a way of like, oh, this is you now, this would be you 20 years ago, and like I'm basically the same person. And as much as I wish that was the case, it is not. And I like I said, I was my biggest enemy most of my life, and I just didn't know it. And I was intentionally hamstringing myself, intentionally not doing things, even things I wanted to do. I would deny it to myself and say, no, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. It's dumb. Uh, and something I look for in myself, and I find it is helpful for people to do this. Anything that you immediately dismiss out of hand, like, I won't do that. Why? Why won't you do it? What's wrong with it? And I mean, this would even go as far as with music in me. Like, there was punk and hardcore, and that was it. And that's about as far. I mean, there was some thrash metal, you know, but for the most part, it was hardcore bands, and that was about it. And I wouldn't listen to anything else. And one day I'm like, why? Like, why do you intentionally limit yourself? And when you're talking about on the scale of life and developing skills and doing anything to make yourself feel better, um, this why do you limit yourself? Like, you don't want to ask that question. You don't want to deal with the fact that like people have done you wrong your whole life, and now like you do yourself wrong. Like the training wheels are off, so to speak, and you can just ruin your own life now. And I'm not really offering solutions here, more like the idea that this exists and this is kind of how it came to infect my life. So take it for what it's worth.